What defines success?
You never train to come in second. You know, when I was growing up in Louisville, I don't know any trainer trained their horse to come in second.
What happens when you get knocked down?
If you say you've never made a mistake, you've never learned anything, right?
What makes some people radiate?
I think it's very important, Betty, that you really stay relevant, that you keep challenging yourself. I kind of live by this motto of an infinite capacity to improve upon everything I do.
This is Radiate.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Radiate, the show where we interview some of the world's most successful people to find out how they work their way to the top. This week, Bob Nardelli joins Radiate. You know, we often talk to CEOs on this program, but here's a guy who's run nearly 3 companies. I say nearly because he ran Home Depot and he ran Chrysler, but he almost ran General Electric. He was one of 3 candidates to succeed Jack Welch, which he almost did, but he didn't. So Bob talks about what it was like to be passed over later in this conversation and what were some of his biggest mistakes. You know, imagine that you'd be worried about making too many mistakes when you're overseeing tens of thousands of workers. So enjoy this conversation with Bob Nardelli. Bob, great to see you.
Thank you, Betty. It's great to be here with you.
So for those of you who may or may not know Bob's immense background, former Home Depot CEO, I think actually when I was working at the Financial Times, I had interviewed you when you were at Home Depot.
Yes.
I believe that's when we first met.
First met, back in 2000.
So long ago. Also former chairman and CEO of Chrysler, and of course rose through the ranks at GE to become the CEO of GE Power Systems, and you're now the founder and CEO of XLR-8, a private equity investment advisory firm?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I've got your storied background, Bob, and actually that's kind of where I want to start off.
Okay.
You know, people talk, when they think about their careers, right? I mean, a lot of people these days are saying to themselves, you know, I'm never going to retire, right? I want to work for, because, you know, they see themselves, I mean, they see, you know, their parents, they say, you know, I want to, you know, continue working for the rest of my life. So how do you stay fresh? How do you keep that longevity in your career?
Well, first of all, on working, I'm 68 years old, and I have this goal out there. It's called QTL, quality time left. So I'm intent on working as long as the good Lord lets me. I love it. I think it's important to stay active.
Yeah.
It's important to stay relevant. And to your question, you know, even today I listen, I learn, and then I try to lead. Okay. So I think it's very important to immerse yourself in what's happening today. So for example, if I was still working off the things I learned in the 70s, I wouldn't be relevant.
Right.
So it's important to me to be out in the marketplace, to be aware of things that are changing. I mean, technology, you know, maybe used to change on the decade, now it's changing on the minute. So I think it's very important, Betty, that you really stay relevant, that you keep challenging yourself. Again, I kind of live by this motto of an infinite capacity to improve upon everything I do.
Right.
And then when I was running large organizations, an infinite capacity to improve on everything we do, right? So you kind of set the standard is leading through example.
So how do you, I mean, because I'm always curious, especially with CEOs, because you are bombarded by so many different things, right? Like you've got this fire going on, that fire going on. But then at the same time, you're required to know what the latest trends are, what the latest technology is, you know, and what the latest news is going on. So like, how do you keep that fresh? Like, how do you stay on top of that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I had the luxury and the privilege when I had large organizations to have wonderful men and women around me that were a lot smarter than me and challenged me to stay current, right? So that was a big advantage. Today, you know, when you're running your own company, you've got your own firm, you look around and there's basically no one there.
Right.
So you really have
How many people are at XLR-8 right now?
One.
You?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, it's very important. So I try to stay current, you know, through watching Bloomberg, for example, and you know, in the morning I'll watch a couple of TV shows, news. I'll read a couple of papers. I'm on the Business Council, which is a great way to stay current on what's going on out there. I have 4 children and 3 grandchildren, so I learn a lot from them every day. And I think it's just, you have to have your antennas up and really be out to, we talked earlier about trying to, you're somewhat of a dry sponge.
Yeah.
And you have to immerse yourself in the bucket of technology or what's happening out there today and come up. Otherwise, you will pace yourself and you'll pace the businesses that you're acquiring.
But do you spend, like, let's say, an hour a day, or do you try to find, like, a couple of hours a week where you just sort of sit back and, like, think big things versus, like, like you're on the ground trying to do this deal, trying to buy this company, do this?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm not that disciplined, I guess, but I seek every moment. I really try to, I do 200 nights a year on the road.
Wow.
So, I'm in a plane a lot, so I get a lot of...
How many did you do when you were running, like, Home Depot or
well...
I mean, is this more or less?
About the same,
About the
because
same.
when I was running Home Depot, we would walk maybe 300 stores a year.
Wow.
But we'd go out and, touch the associates, touch the customers, touch the product. So I do get a lot of seat time that allows me to think, to your point, to read. I learned a lot from my mentor, Jack Welch, about connecting the dots. So I'm always looking for, if I read this, how does it relate to that? If I see something happening out there in the market, how can that relate to the businesses that I've got in my portfolio? Or is there something out there that we should go after and target for a potential bolt-on acquisition and adjacency or something? At Home Depot, we did 50 acquisitions in 18 months. And we went from 0 to 8 billion in Home Depot supply.
Right.
And that's just being, sensitive
Crazy.
to what's happening out there.
So, Bob, I know you talk a lot, and you write also about leadership. So,
Yes.
so give me what you think is the biggest leadership issue or hot button issue going on right now.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a number of them. One we were talking about earlier is this whole area of leadership development, succession planning, performance review. A lot of people out there today, what I find, Betty, they all want authority.
Okay. What do you mean? Like, what do you mean?
Well, they want to be the boss. They
gotcha.
They want to be able to approve things. They want to be able to make decisions. So they want authority. There's a lesser amount that wants responsibility, and even a lesser amount that want accountability, is what I see. So,
Unless it's a success, then everyone says me.
well, that's true. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody, success or has many, many parents or many
Exactly.
fathers, but it is interesting, in today's environment, as I see that striation of authority, responsibility, accountability, and again, I have to admit, I grew up in a culture of accountability. Under Jack, it was, make your numbers and you don't have to talk. Don't make your numbers and you can't talk enough. And so when we go in for these reviews, if you had a lot of narrative, and he would say, well, the only number I see in that is your page number. And so let's flip to the financials.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, I'm blessed to have been
Trained that way, yeah.
under him about being very granular, getting into the details. Now, you can get criticism for that, and I have in the past, for being too granular,
Okay.
too micromanaging. But, if you think about the businesses that I've been, fortunate to be part of and the organizations, our team has enjoyed tremendous success over the 45 years I've been in business.
How would you describe yourself as a leader? 'Cause there's different types, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's like the commanding leader.
Yeah.
There's, we're actually just, I think we tweeted out a post about this from a business coach who said, like, there's 6 types. I can't remember all of them, but,
Yeah.
there's commanding, there's democratic, there's coaching, there's,
Yeah. I think successful leaders have a piece of all of that. I
Okay.
think if you're 100% command and control, you're not going to allow for the diversity of your team. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I'm a firm believer that, because I've grown up in organizations where they're always first among peers. And GE was kind of like engineering, and Home Depot was tend to be the merchants, right? So my philosophy was an equal participation of all the leadership team, literally at a round table. And the way you maximize the sum of the total is that you're very granular and involved with each individual. And the ability to multitask through them, so that you have everybody working at the highest level of performance they can
Right.
by staying involved, so you don't launch and leave, right? Betty, go do this, and I'll see you in 6 months. So you have continual dialogue at the micro level. There's the strategic view and what are you doing to accomplish it. I think it's very important, if you can't put your strategy on one sheet of paper for the organization. I mean, Home Depot, we had 330,000 associates. And so to get clarity, everybody has to know what's important and how is it what they're doing every day contributes to that success.
Right.
Otherwise, come review.
Otherwise, they don't know.
Well, otherwise, come at review time, there's a disconnect. Well, I'm working on this. Well, why? Well, because I thought that's what you meant. No, that's not what I meant. I meant about, enhancing the core, extending the business, expanding the market. Those were the 3 initiatives. We had mega trends back in 2000, post 9/11. The home became a sanctuary. We had aging in place. We had safety and security. So what were the products and services that we were going to offer consistent with the market back and customer-centric kind of view?
I wanted to ask you about some of the challenges in your career, Bob, and what, maybe some of the mistakes you've made or the low points in your career and what you've learned from them. Because I always hear from people, like, that's when they learn the most. So what would you say was, looking back, like a mistake that you made in your career that you learned something from?
Yeah. Well, listen, if you say you've never made a mistake, you've never learned anything, right?
Right.
I mean, I could certainly reflect back and at times I thought I was bending but not breaking the organization. And, there was a general opinion at times that maybe I was pushing the organization too fast, too hard, too quick to change the culture or to change the operating system. So maybe I should have had a little better sensitivity to that, I guess.
Was this at Home Depot?
Yeah,
or?
at Home
Okay.
Depot. I mean, we went from a little over 40 billion to 90 billion in 5 years. We opened 1,000 stores. We opened a new store every 48 hours.
Wow.
We almost tripled the income. We grew Home Depot supply from 0 to 8 billion. We grew from 0 to 1.8 billion online. And so we were blowing and going. And
you were breaking things, I'm sure, right? And because you have to when you're growing
I would
that
say
fast.
not break. I hope I was influencing or encouraging or
Right.
bending. But, I just saw the opportunities and wanted to seize them. And I think
Right.
a lot of the leadership team, we didn't have, once we got our organization structure in place and populated, we didn't have a lot of turnover. I mean, people really bought into, you could do it, we can help. And, having those, like at GE Power Systems, it was from wellhead to consumer.
Right.
People bought into that. When I was running GE Transportation, it was together we can. And, we had probably one of the strongest unions in the country, the IUE. And one of the happiest, one of the most gratifying is when we had the head of the union and come up and say, we got it. We're on board. We know what you're trying to do. You're going from 300 locomotives a year to 800 locomotives. It was similar, one of my highlights was when I went to Chrysler. It was interesting, Betty, an outsider, right? Not Detroit, not an auto guy.
Right.
And they said, Bob, what the heck do you know about the auto industry? What can you bring to it? And we were going through a rough time, the financial institution melted down. The FICO scores went from 350 to 750. And I said, well, auto guys got you here in this problem. I'm trying to help you, right?
That's a good point.
And so that was interesting. And the other thing, here's kind of an interesting, I didn't want to take the position without talking to Ron Gettelfinger, who was the head of the UAW. So I went down to his headquarters. And fast forward, Ron and I are dear friends. We still talk and have tremendous respect for what Ron helped us through. So Ron,
you didn't know that at the time when you went down there. I mean,
no,
you're going into
I stepped in.
enemy territory there.
Well, I was cautious, right?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be respectful, and I knew, the UAW's been there longer than I was there. So we walked in the conference room, and he brings in a stack of papers like this, and then he brought in a single sheet. And I said, oh, this is not going to be good. And so he started flipping the paper about stories about the chairman and CEO of GE. And he said, Jack said this, and Jack said this, and Jack said this. So I was listening, right? And he said, and I looked, you up and trying to find articles about you, and he turned over a blank sheet of paper. He said, "You're good by me." So we hit it off, and he was a tremendous partner through that whole process. We would not have been able to save Chrysler if it wasn't for Ron and his leadership with the UAW.
And that trust right from the beginning.
From the beginning, day one, yeah.
That's
very,
fascinating.
very important. And so, again, I've been blessed with a lot of highlights and lowlights in my career. I must have made some mistakes. I didn't get the job at GE.
How did that feel when that happened, Bob?
Well, Jack hates for me to say this, but anyway, it was, you never train to come in second. When I was growing up in Louisville, I don't know any trained their horse to come in second. We're going to come in second today, right? So I thought, keep your head down, do your job, and I've always thought about that. Focus on what you're doing, not what you want to do next. And so it was crushing. It was a moment out of Casablanca. It was Thanksgiving. Jack called and said, "I'm gonna meet you at the FBO." It was snowing, rainy, sleet. He comes down, and you just knew, it wasn't going to be a good discussion. But look, he made a decision, and I respect him for that. I love Jack. He's been a good friend to me, still is. A tremendous regard for him and what he allowed me to do and coached me to do. But I'd be lying if I wasn't disappointed. Now, so that happened, and then within a week I was running Home Depot. So
But you had no idea that was going to happen.
No,
right?
I mean, I'd been a customer of Home Depot, but I never thought I'd be running Home Depot. But it worked out just fine. So I was lucky as heck to be able to go from that to Home Depot and then to Chrysler.
Well, that also, I'm kind of curious, when that conversation happened, like, how did Jack deliver it, or how did that go? Because I think a lot of people wonder, like, how do you deliver bad news to people?
I mean, he said, "Listen, I just had to make a gut decision. I just had to make a gut call, and all three of you were great, and any one of you could have done it. And, I decided to go with Jeff. And, I appreciate it. He treated me well, and so it was, it was heartbreaking for me, and I'm sure a tough call for him, but we handled it in a very professional way.
Right.
And we both moved on, and no hard feelings.
Bob, did you always know that you wanted to be a leader, that you wanted to become a chief executive? Like, did you always, I mean, nobody goes up and says, "I want to be a CEO," in the sense of, like, they're always like, "I want to do this, I want to do that." But did you know that you wanted to?
Well, I've run into some that have said that right out of
I
college,
guess
right out of
that's true.
college, right? No, this is a great story, I'll tell you. I graduated in 1971, and I was going to be a management trainee for Ponderosa Steakhouse. I was going to sell life insurance for Metropolitan Life, and then I got the offer of a lifetime to start as a manufacturing engineer in 1971 for $9,600. And when I talked to students, in the MBA program, they said, "You mean a week?" I said, "No, for a year." And I went into the 2-year manufacturing management training program at GE because I wanted to take core curriculum and then localize it to how GE thinks about it. And one of the tasks was write down the number of positions between you and Reg Jones, who was the chairman CEO. I literally filled, I think, 2.5 sheets of paper. Reg Jones, blah, 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 vice chairman, and then there was me down here at like a level 5. They used to have these levels at $9,600 a year. And I remember telling my wife, we've been married now for 45 years, 13 moves later, and I said, "Geez, if I could ever make $100,000 and be a unit manager." A unit manager just controlled a section of a manufacturing plant, like ran the assembly or ran fabrication. I said, "Man, we will have arrived if I can get there." So,
wow.
I mean, as I was successful and really lucky to be able to move up, then it really wasn't until I came back to GE. I left for a while. I took a little sabbatical and ran Case Construction Equipment worldwide, and then I was lucky enough to come back. And it was only when I came back and I had to go to purgatory for a while. Jack sent me to Canada. He said, I can't reward you for leaving and coming back. And so I went up there for a while. And then he brought me back to run transportation and then power system. And it was only then that I thought, maybe I got a shot at this thing. So I always believed, again, do your job, stay focused on your core, volunteer to do everything you can to broaden your base.
Right.
People, a lot of my peers criticize me because I took some jobs that where I call horizontal promotion, right? And they said, Bob, why do you want to run assembly from 5 in the morning till 9 at night? So if I don't do it now, I may never get that experience.
Right.
And so I was fortunate to grow a broad base of experience that has served me well looking back now on how it positioned me, what I learned, not only operationally, but people.
Right.
I mean, we had an assembly line. We were making 3 refrigerators an hour, 150 people on a deck in Louisville. In the summer, it was over 100 degrees. Now, what they don't teach you is when an employee came up and said, I can't work next to that guy, he smells. So, that's not something you learn in the MBA program.
Those are problems, exactly.
Yeah.
Those are problems you don't get taught.
You don't get taught that problem, yeah. Or, when somebody's supposed to be checking the quality and is sitting there reading the paper because, they've been doing it for 25 years, and you confront them, and then, you kind of stir the bee pot a little bit.
Right.
So it's easy to get people to walk out of a factory. It's pretty hard to get them back in again. But I'm lucky to have all that scar tissue.
That's it for this week, and I'm sad to say, yes, our season 2 is ending. Aww. We've had a blast with some of the great CEOs, entrepreneurs, leaders out there who are kind enough to sit down with me. I've learned so much from each and every one of you. Now we're going to be taking a little bit of a break because I need to focus on many things, including my family, but also on this little thing that we're building at Radiate, which is turning into much more than a podcast. It's become a place that we hope you go to help you in your career. It's not just about hearing stories. We all love hearing stories, but it's also about getting real advice, tips, concrete things that you can do to help you grow. So please, if you like what we're doing, you want to support us, check us out at radiateinc.com. That's radiateinc.com. Sign up for my newsletter to keep up to date. I can't tell you exactly when we will be back, but it won't be too long. So be sure to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn to get lots of updates. Be sure to sign up again for our newsletter. And if you like this podcast, subscribe to us on iTunes and review us. So until next time, see you on Radiate.